All right, welcome back to the listener's commentary on the book of Revelation. In this recording, we're going to be looking at Revelation chapter 5, verses 1 through 14. And recall that John is simply writing down what he saw. And we've described Revelation in a lot of ways as like a giant stage drama. It's a play, a drama. And John witnessed this drama, and because it's a vision or a dream, right? He's both a witness in it, but at times he's a participant in it. And he writes down what he saw, what he experienced for the benefit originally of the 7 churches of Asia, and then by extension to all of God's people who later benefited from this book as well, including us. And so John is simply writing down what he saw. And here we're going to be looking at chapter 5, but we need to recall that this particular vision began in chapter 4. And we described it there as like the anchoring vision for the entire drama of the book of Revelation. It's the primary scene, the primary set for the whole drama that's going to follow. And in the first half of that vision, there in chapter 4, 1 through 11, John was ushered in the Spirit right into the very throne room of heaven itself. And he sees God the Father on the throne. And then he sees around that 24 elders, which seem to probably represent the people of God from both Old and New Testaments. And then in between those elders and God's throne are angelic beings called living creatures. And all of this centers on the worship of God on the throne. The living creatures, the 24 elders, are all acclaiming the holiness and the majesty of God himself, singing a hymn of praise because he's the creator of everything. Well, now in chapter 5, as the vision continues, John notes a detail. There's something in the hand of him who's sitting on the throne. So look at Revelation chapter 5. And I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll written inside and on the back, sealed up with 7 seals. And so he notes this little detail as he continues describing what he's looking at. The person sitting on the throne, God himself, has a scroll in his right hand. So you have to picture a rolled up piece of parchment or a rolled up piece of papyrus, and it's in God's right hand. And this particular scroll is unusual in the sense that it had writing on both sides. It's a little detail. We don't want to make a big deal of it because John never does. It's just unusual. Most of the time, scrolls were only written on one side, not both sides. And so it stood out to John as he looked at this. He's like, wow, there's a lot of writing on that scroll. It's got it on both sides. And it's sealed with 7 seals. Typically, a scroll would have had a leather band tied around it. And if it was an official document, then there would be a little dollop of clay where that band was tied, and it would be sealed with the impress of the authority figure who wrote the document. Well, John notes that this particular scroll was somehow sealed with 7 different seals. And in the real world, that wouldn't work. Certainly opening the scroll one seal at a time, as we'll see in chapter 6, wouldn't work. But this is a dream and a vision, and in dreams, things like this happen. And so it's sealed with the 7 seals because it seems to represent the complete and full authority of God, right? That's the idea of the number 7. It's God's full authority. It lies within and behind and around this document. This document is in God's right hand, and it comes with his full authority. And this scroll will become the main feature of the vision that's going to follow in chapters 6 through 8, the vision of the 7 seals. But first, we need to figure out who has the authority to open the scroll, to break its seals. It's sealed with the full authority of God, after all. And so as John continues to describe what he sees here in the throne room in heaven, he says in verse 2, I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the scroll and to break its seals? And then John says, and no one in heaven or on the earth or even under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look within it. In other words, no created being in heaven, no created being on earth, no created being under the earth, seemingly meaning the demonic realm. There was no created being, angelic, human, or demonic, that had the authority to open this scroll. And here's how John reacted to this as he's experiencing this vision. Verse 4, he says, and I began to weep greatly because no one was found worthy to open the scroll or to look in it. The idea of weeping greatly is John wept and wept. As John is witnessing and participating in this drama, he's overcome by emotion. This is an important scroll. This is like central to what, and yet no one's able to open it. And one of the elders, that is one of the 24 who's sitting on those 24 thrones, said to me, "Stop weeping. Behold, the Lion that is from the tribe of Judah, the root of David, he's overcome so as to be able to open the scroll and its 7 seals." So John gets reassurance from one of the elders that don't weep. That scroll is going to get opened, and it's going to be opened specifically by the Lion from the tribe of Judah. That language derives from Jacob's blessing of his sons in Genesis 49. In Genesis 49, verses 9 and 10, Judah is called a lion's cub, and he's told that the scepter is not going to depart from him. That is the royal scepter. Kingship will come from the tribe of Judah. So that's the idea we have here. And then also this phrase, the root of David, that seems to come from Isaiah chapter 11, verse 10. There, the Messiah is described as the root of Jesse. Well, Jesse is David's father. So the root of David. In other words, we're talking about the Messiah. That's the idea. The Lion from the tribe of Judah, the root of David. These now are descriptors for the Messiah. And so what John is told by this elder is that the Messiah has overcome. And because he's overcome, because he's victorious, he's able to open this scroll and its 7 seals. Now, a lion sounds so ferocious and so powerful. It's a truly kingly and royal image, right? It's very powerful. But when John turns and sees this lion from the tribe of Judah, he describes who he sees, and it's completely unexpected. Look at verse 6. "And I saw between the throne with the 4 living creatures and the elders a lamb standing as if slaughtered." In other words, the Lion from the tribe of Judah is a lamb. And not just any lamb, a slaughtered lamb, a slain lamb. That is, a sacrificed lamb with his throat cut. And we must not miss the significance of this for the whole book of Revelation. From here on out, Jesus, the Messiah, the Lion from the tribe of Judah, is the lamb who was slain. 28 times in the book of Revelation, Jesus is described, pictured as a lamb. So rather than a kingly, ferocious lion, the Messiah, Jesus, is a vulnerable lamb and one who had overcome by being slaughtered and slain, sacrificed before God. This is how Jesus, the Messiah, won his victory. He won by dying. And that's what John sees. And so as he turns and he looks, that's the one who now has authority to open the scrolls. And he goes on to describe him, this slaughtered lamb having 7 horns, which pictures complete authority, complete strength. The idea of a horn in Jewish thinking and Old Testament thinking is authority and power. So having 7 horns means he has full authority. And 7 eyes, which is again interpreted for us as the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. And remember what we've said about that is 7 spirits emphasizing the full Spirit of God. And here they're sent out into the earth and they're like eyes. They have full awareness and full knowledge of all that goes on earth. And he came and he took the scroll out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. And so we should picture him climbing the stairs up to the elevated platform where the throne of God is. And he takes that scroll out of God's right hand. And it seems as he does that, then he's going to sit down on the throne right next to God, exalted with God on the throne. And this leads then to more worship in heaven, and that worship taking a new turn. Now, all the attention is on the Messiah, the Lamb who was slain. He receives worship, just like God on the throne received worship. The 4 angels and the 24 elders lay out prostrate before him, before this Lamb who was slain in humble adoration, and they sing a new song to him. Listen to how Revelation chapter 5 continues. When he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, laying out prostrate before him, each one holding a harp and a golden bowl full of incense. And then John interprets that symbol for us, which are the prayers of the saints. And so now as we picture this, you have the 24 elders. They have harps with which to play music, to lead the heavenly chorus in worship. And they also hold a golden bowl full of incense, which represents the prayers of God's people rising up before the throne of God. And they sang a new song saying, "Worthy are you to take the scroll and to break its seals." Why are you worthy? What gives Jesus that authority? For you were slaughtered, you were sacrificed, and you purchased people for God with your blood from every tribe, language, people, and nation. You purchased by your sacrificial death. You redeemed people, not just from among your own people, but from all around the world, from all these different places, every tribe, language, people, and nation. And you have made them into a kingdom and priests to our God, and they will reign upon the earth. And again, this is central to biblical theology. When Israel itself was redeemed out of Egypt through the Exodus event, and now they're camped at Mount Sinai in Exodus chapter 19, and God speaks to them, they are said to have been redeemed so that they might be a kingdom of priests. And all of that is actually trying to reclaim humanity for what it was supposed to be way back in the beginning when God first created Adam and Eve, the very first humans, and said to them that they were to have dominion over the earth and subdue it. In other words, they're supposed to be like little kings and queens underneath the high king of heaven, ruling the earth on God's behalf for his purposes according to his values. Human beings were made to be a kingdom of priests from the very get-go. And Jesus now, through his death, has brought all kinds of people back to himself to be a kingdom and priests to God. And priests specifically sort of stand in the middle between God and people and God. And so they bring God's wisdom and truth and goodness to the world, but they also capture up the worship and the prayers and the needs of God, people back to God. That's who human beings are. That's what it means really to be the church and the people of God, to be a kingdom of priests and to reign upon the earth. And then John says, I looked and I heard the voices of many angels around the throne and the living creatures and the elders, and the number of them was myriads upon myriads, thousands upon thousands sang with a loud voice. And so now this great hall is so massive and so filled with so many beings that you can't count them. It's myriads upon myriads, thousands upon thousands, joining the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders. You have all these angels around the throne, and they're all going to join in and worship the Lamb. And so they say with a loud voice, "Worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power and wealth and wisdom, might, honor, glory, and blessing." And they're directing all their worship now to the Messiah, Jesus, this Lamb that was slain, that sacrificed himself to redeem humans to himself and to reconcile them to God and to enable them to carry out their purpose as human beings again. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain and brought that about. He deserves power, wealth, wisdom, might, honor, glory, and blessing. And then notice what John says in verse 13. And then I heard every created thing which is in heaven or on the earth or even under the earth. He hears every created being acknowledging the greatness of the Lamb, everything on the sea or all the things in them. So the entire created universe acknowledging the Messiah Jesus' authority and power and greatness. To him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be blessing, honor, glory, and dominion forever and ever. And the 4 living creatures were saying, Amen. And the elders fell down and worshiped. And so Jesus, by virtue of his self-sacrifice, his self-giving love, now is seated on the throne, with God himself, and he is the centerpiece of the worship of the entire created universe. All of creation worshiping the Lamb who was slain. And once again, as we said at the end of our last recording, that worship is the central activity of the universe, that all of reality, the entire truth about the nature of the universe it's God-centered, it's Lamb-centered, Jesus, the Messiah on the throne, God on the throne. All of creation revolves around them, and whether they want to or not, they will acknowledge his sovereignty, his kingship, his authority, and his victory. And in the midst of the stuff of everyday life, right? Shopping at the grocery store, going to Walmart, our smartphones and our social media and our schedules and all the politics and all the stuff that is so real, we need to remember that the centerpiece of it all is a great, massive hall where God sits enthroned and where God is worshiped. Worship is a central activity of the universe. And Jesus, who walked the hills of Galilee, now is exalted to the right hand of God, seated on the throne. The Lamb who was slain is now part of that central activity of the universe. So what's the first thing we need to see if we're going to be faithful to Christ in this world, both for the original readers in Asia Minor, or you in Canada or the UK or in South Africa or in Colombia, wherever you live? What's the first thing you and I need to see if we're going to be faithful to Jesus in this world? We need to see God on his throne and worship him. We need to see the Messiah, the Lamb King, sacrificed and celebrate how he won his victory by offering up his life. Ben Witherington puts it like this: true Christian worship clarifies where our ultimate loyalties are and should be. Worship reminds us that we don't own our ultimate loyalties to ourselves, our colleges, our sports teams, our nation, our human ruler, or even the human race in general, but rather our ultimate loyalties belong to God in Christ. Right ordering of life on earth begins with reorienting the kingdoms of this world around God and Jesus and worshiping him. When we sing and worship as part of our Christian celebrations, well, we're part of something much larger and much greater and much more real and more glorious than meets the eye. We're adding our voices to the myriads and myriads of voices who are singing, "To him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be blessing and honor and glory and power forever and ever and ever." And that's the centerpiece of the universe. And that's the anchoring vision for the entire drama that the book of Revelation is. And so as we continue to work our way through the book of Revelation, we have to keep chapters 4 and 5 in our heart and in our mind, because they anchor the whole story. Because at the heart of this letter and this prophecy is a word of encouragement to help God's people then and now be faithful to what is really true and who's really in charge in the midst of a world that sometimes seems so out of control. All right, thanks for tuning into this session of the Listener's Commentary on the New Testament. As always, the Listener's Commentary only exists because of the generosity of dozens and dozens of people just like you. So thanks a ton. Every month I get a donation report, and it just is so encouraging to me to see 60, 70, 80 different people giving $5 here, $25 there, $50, $30, $100, whatever it is. And so thanks a ton for your generosity. And if you've been challenged, encouraged, built up by the Listener's Commentary, I just would like to invite you to join the team of supporters so that this ministry can continue to grow and can continue to impact and benefit more people. So if you want to support this ministry, you can go to listenerscommentary.com. You can sign up for the Study Hub. That's one great way to support the ministry. Or you can click the Give button. That'll redirect you to a page, my page at World Family Mission, a registered nonprofit, where you can put in a dollar amount, and you can click a little box that says Make This Monthly if you want it to be a monthly donation, and you can support the ministry right there. Thanks a ton for your support.